Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom. Hey there, YouTube. My name's Brad. I'm the Harley Davidson Wizard. We're working on a 2016 Street Glide today that has very serious transmission problems. It's grinding in 4th and 5th gear, I want to say the customer said, but it is definitely screwed. So we're going to speed it up while we do the teardown so it doesn't take forever. Basically, we're just going to use a 5/16 Allen socket, pop that footboard off. It's got some fancy little chrome plug in there. Get that out of there. And then we're going to be popping the shifter off and the primary cover, getting that primary oil out of it with a 3/16 Allen socket. So before doing this teardown, I had initially assessed the vehicle. The customer brought the bike in along with some paperwork, which was nice to have, because sometimes you don't get the real story, just word of mouth or through the service writer. So it's nice to actually get the information from the customer. He had just purchased this motorcycle from a non-Harley Davidson dealership. They had told him that they just put a new transmission in it, and he saw that as a incentive for buying the vehicle. Only to find out that it is not a new transmission, but that place that he had bought it from bought a used transmission, and then they found somebody to put it together very poorly, leading to these problems. So you're going to pull out the clutch release bearing. I spray it with a little bit of parts cleaner just to get the oil off of it, because that snap ring always snaps oil in my glasses. Get that out of there. And then remove the tensioner. It's a 1/2-inch socket. And then I always feel the chain to make sure that it isn't. Sometimes if you get crap in the primary, it can leave very sharp edges on the primary chain. But it's a left-handed socket for the clutch hub. It's a 13/16. And then standard thread on the end of the crankshaft there is an 1.5-inch socket. Pop that stuff off. There's an insane amount of red Loctite residual in that compensator adapter. It has a Baker compensator. And I have a really long 1/4-inch Allen, I guess you'd call that a drive bit, but it works really well for getting back in there to the starter screws. Pull the screws out of the starter. And then a 1/2-inch socket to pull the other 5 screws that are on the inner primary. Pop that bad boy off. So on this particular project, I already know that the customer has purchased a aftermarket ESP, extended service program. And with any of the extended service programs, they always require tearing the entire vehicle apart before. Well, you have to tear everything apart and have like a complete inspection and presentation ready for the ESP adjuster when they come out. Obviously, you want to have everything torn apart so that you know exactly what's wrong with stuff, but it's this whole presentation that you have to put together that's really just such a pain in the nuts. So we're breaking this entire transmission case down. We know that from our inspection that there's a problem with the gear set and the shift fork assembly. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but we just pulled the shift lever off. That's a 1/4-inch Allen, and then a little baby snap ring plier set. Pull the snap ring off. A 3/16 socket to pull the transmission top cover off. And then you can't access all of them because the cylinders are in the way. So that's a little 3/16 bit on a little 1/4-inch ratcheting wrench. It's a nice little kit. You can get it anywhere, Home Depot or whatever. I bought it off the Matco truck, but it makes it a whole lot easier than using a little bit with an open-ended ratchet or open-ended wrench. So once we get that transmission top cover off, we're going to flip the little gear selector arm up and rest it on the gasket surface of where the cover just popped off of. That way when we pull the transmission gear set out, it won't break that off. along with, you want to make sure that you pull the transmission dipstick out, because you can easily break that off too if you don't. This is a Harley Davidson specific tool. It pulls off the main shaft bearing race. That's what we're doing. We're using a really big wrench to turn it, and probably the biggest ratchet I have. It can take a lot of effort to pull the inner bearing race off, but it'll slide right off. This is a whole nother problem with this particular vehicle. Is it has this Reinhardt 2-in-1 exhaust system, and then it has a set of like advanced black aftermarket saddlebags. The bags are painted good, but they fit like garbage. They fit like so much garbage that somebody's wrapped the rear saddlebag guard with toilet paper and electrical tape to kind of hold the bag up, because the exhaust system is all up in the side of the saddlebag, just gouging it, which is ridiculous, but it's kind of par for the course with the rest of the quality of this build. But you use a 1/2-inch socket to pull your rear exhaust pipe nuts off, and then another 1/2-inch socket to pull the nuts off the cylinder head where the exhaust flange fits. I can tell right from the get-go that this is going to be a terribly fitting exhaust system. Like, I don't know if it's just the exhaust system sucks how it fits on the motorcycle. I don't know whose fault it is, whether it's the exhaust system or who put it on or what the deal is. But this thing fits on like a real SOB. It's difficult to take off. It's difficult to put on. Ultimately, we do get it to fit without rubbing on the saddlebag and everything, but it takes extreme measures. But I can already tell it's going to be a bear, but you use 9/16 socket to take off the transmission to exhaust mount. And even this is a real pain in the butt, because you can't get in there and hold it with anything. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So we sit here and struggle with the exhaust system for a while. Finally, we get to hold the carriage bolt with a screwdriver wedged on top of it. Get the nut off. Like I was saying, we know it's going to be putting up a fight. Normally I put green tape on the rear brake lever, but we know what's to come. So you just double up a rag and put it on there. That way it doesn't show any evidence of the struggle. Even the flanges are stuck on the cylinder studs. Like, somebody torqued them down so much that they're bent or something. So we're getting in there with a little 90 degree pick and just trying to scoot the exhaust flange off of the studs so that the stupid exhaust system will come off. We're basically trying everything that we can until we find the magic combination. There's a lot of times where hardware or components are wonky or put together terribly, and you can tell that's all the customer had laying around the garage or whatever. But this isn't that type of situation. So many of the heads of the screws, like on the primary and the transmission side cover and the exhaust system, are beyond blown out because somebody was just doing a terrible job. And it's so sad to think of this motorcycle. It's young in its life. It only had 6,000 miles on it. And people are just they're pissing on its parade right from the get-go. I have this fancy piece of cardboard that I have cut in this shape that works for almost everything. It's a veteran. You use a 3/16 Allen to pull the chrome side cover off. And you don't need to pull the secondary actuator at this time. Just the other 4 3/16 screws that hold the side cover on. And it's got the pink death in it. Somebody was trying to cover up the noise of the transmission coming apart. And then I want to say those are a 1/4-inch screw that hold the transmission side door on. And even those are They're so gobbled up with red Loctite, and the heads of the fasteners are just chunked all away. This customer is really going to get a good product here at the end. And not that I'm glad that this happened to the customer at all. At least he found us, found our dealership, and we're making this right for him. So now we have everything released so that the gear set can come out. And here, let's take a look at it. So after we have it cleaned up a little bit so we can take a better look at it, it's very obvious that somebody had gotten this transmission, took it apart, probably to replace bearings on it, and put it together incorrectly. Here we see where the countershaft assembly has gouged into the countershaft bearing in the transmission case because that assembly is not in that black side door far enough. So everything is misaligned. The last shift fork on that countershaft assembly, it's clear to see that it's right up on that shift dog, and there's a huge amount of room on the other side, and it's supposed to be in the center. So it's not able to correctly engage the gear that it's too far from. And as we start moving the shift fork assemblies, we see that the gear in the center is just flopping around. There's lots of slop, and it's flopping around. It's slopping around. So what had happened is when the original person that took this transmission assembly apart, when they were pressing this countershaft assembly back into the side door, they let one of the retention rings fall out of place. And then the whole thing wasn't able to get pressed into the bearing far enough. And after I had cleaned out the transmission case, I found remnants of it. And this is a very telltale sign of that happening, is when things are correctly pressed together, both of the main shaft and the counter shaft protrude through the nut the same amount. Here we have a look in the transmission case with the damage done by the counter shaft to the case. Thanks for watching. Make sure you click like and subscribe. See you next time.